All right, breaking news coming in. The US president has upped the ante on his tariff war against India. Just minutes ago, Donald Trump signed an executive order for an additional 25% tariff on India. A White House statement says, and I quote here, articles of India imported into the United States of America shall be subject to additional ad valorem rate of duty of 25%. The statement further says, and I quote here, necessary appropriate to impose additional ad valorem duty on imports of articles of India, which is indirectly importing Russian oil. Well, this is a massive development coming in from Washington, D.C., and it comes shortly after the U.S. president suggested a very substantial hike would come within a span of 24 hours. India has already been hit with 25% tariffs in the recent past, and the hike now takes the total retaliatory tariffs against India to a whopping 50%. Trump's retaliation comes after India took a stance against the US president's tariff and lashed out at West double standards. In a sharply worded statement, the Minister of External Affairs said that India will take all required steps to safeguard its national interests, while pointing out that the US and EU have themselves continued trade with Russia, including in energy and critical commodities. New Delhi has further called this targeting of India unjustified and unreasonable. And well, for more on this, our correspondent Susan Thirani is joining us live from New York. Hi, Susan. Trump has now slapped a total of 50% tariff on India. What's the latest on this?
Right, as you mentioned, 25% ad valorem, which is a tax on the value of goods on all Indian imports into the United States. This kicks off 21 days after the order is signed, with a narrow exception for goods that are already in transit. Now, there are some exemptions and exceptions. It does not apply to goods already protected under specific national security rules, items already accepted in prior executive orders, and certain U.S. foreign trade zone articles admitted under quote unquote domestic status. Those are the exceptions, and this executive order, of course, just came out a few minutes ago. Prior to this, yesterday, Nikki Haley, former presidential candidate for the Republicans that was running against Donald Trump, said in an X post that while Indian tariffs may be justified, but to offer a country like China 90 days of grace period and punish a key ally like India so quickly like this is unfair and not the right policy. So we're seeing some voices, even within the Republican Party, come out against how President Trump is conducting these tariffs against a key ally being India.
Right, Susan. We'll, of course, be tracking this very closely, but thanks for getting us the latest and joining us on Race to Power. All right, for more on this, we're now being joined by Jayant Krishna, Senior Fellow, Center for Strategic and International Studies, and he's joining us live from New Delhi. Welcome to WION, Mr. Krishna. First up, of course, a total of 50% tariff on India. The burning question right now is, what options does India have right now?
See, it is very extremely unfortunate what has happened. It negates all principles of a win-win negotiation, and the entire war is being fought on President Trump's social media handle, devoid of any deliberations, discussions, an open dialogue. It's extremely unfortunate. This kind of 50% tariff, additional 25% tariff on all Indian imports. I think the only option India has is, it can perhaps gradually look at alternate oil supply sources. But obviously, we can't stop buying completely from Russia, for one simple reason, because no other country provides oil to us at a rate at which Russia provides, right? But we can give them a roadmap that how we will gradually reduce, And as far as the defense equipment is concerned, that is something which India is not buying new defense equipment as much from Russia. It is only the legacy equipment that we have bought, defense equipment that we have bought. You need maintenance spares, you need enhancements on that, and because of which some part of that goes into it. But oil, I think India now with the 50% tariff has no option but to have a roadmap of a gradual reduction in the Russian oil imports. And negotiate with all countries, including US, if they can provide us oil at a comparable rate, or
Right.
So it's not a win-win game being played at all. It's extremely unfortunate, and he has brought an extraneous issue into the trade negotiations. Ideally, where you buy your stuff from, it should not be a part of tariff negotiations at all. But this is extreme, negative strategy being pursued. But the fact is, nations like Japan, European Union, UK, many other countries have succumbed, and they have sweetened the deal, and that's the reason they are ready with the deal. I at this point of time, I believe, since US happens to be India's second largest trading partner,
Right.
and among the only major countries where we have a trade surplus in favor of India, and also the maximum amount of FDI that comes from any country to India is from the US. So I don't think we have as many options. And I don't think it will be fair to stop the Russian crude oil imports immediately. But there has to be a roadmap of a gradual reduction, because we actually don't have a choice at all. We are not as strong an economy as China, which can really call
Right.
the shots, and because there's a huge amount of American dependence on imports from China, which is not as much the case with India at all. So I think we have to be very, very careful and not give up the path of negotiations. I don't think confrontation with somebody like Trump will help at all. But
Right,
we
Mr.
have to move on a path of a reconciliatory negotiation and a gradual roadmap for reduction of crude oil import from
Right.
Russia to India.
Right, Mr. Krishna. Like you also mentioned that a lot of countries have succumbed to Trump's pressure. India is clearly standing up to Trump at this point of time, with India's NSA also in Moscow. What's the broader messaging that you see is coming out of New Delhi towards Trump?
See, New Delhi today has not reacted when an additional 25% has been put, but the earlier reaction was loud and clear that you are blaming us for importing oil from Russia. But the fact is, US itself imports uranium from Russia. It imports palladium, which is used in electric vehicles. It imports chemicals, fertilizers. European Union has also been talking about India in a way helping Russia by importing oil from there. And perhaps funding the Ukraine war, which is very unfair. I mean, the total trade that European Union, for example, does with Russia is of the order of 60 to 70 billion euros. Which is much more than the total oil and all other imports that we do from Russia. And similar the story with the US also. So I think it's a very unfortunate situation where extraneous elements have come center stage, and they have become more important than discussions on things like tariff reduction, removal of non-tariff barriers, and some headway that US wants in Indian markets, especially for the agricultural, the farm products and the dairy products. It's very unfortunate the direction in which these negotiations have gone, and now I believe negotiations are not even happening till the time the American team
Right.
arrives in India by end of this month, end of August. So the war is being fought on social media. Unfortunately, Indian diplomacy can't stoop to that level and join the race with the US on this war. But India's choices and options are getting reduced for sure.
Right, Mr. Krishna, I was just coming to that yesterday when a reporter asked Trump about how US also imports fertilizers and uranium from Russia, he had nothing to say on that aspect. My third question to you is that this additional 25% tariff, which makes it 50% against India, it comes a day earlier, of course, after Trump said that he will substantially raise the tariffs in a span of 24 hours. Do you think that the US president is closing in on the time?
Yeah, so I think see, initially I thought it shows his frustration because he wanted a deal. He's a quick fixer. He's a transactional president, and he only believes at at winning at any cost. He doesn't care for how other nations suffer. He doesn't care for what happens to Indian farmers and dairy entrepreneurs. He only bothers about himself and for his country. Which is a very, very in an era where more and more the world needs to behave more multilaterally. He's behaving absolutely unilaterally, which is very unfortunate, making America great again at the cost of rest of the nation suffering. It is extremely, extremely unfortunate. And, unfortunately, we have fewer options, the kind of tariff he has imposed on us. If you look at our immediate competitors for goods that we export to the US, right? European Union, Malaysia, Indonesia, Japan, South Korea, Sri Lanka, Vietnam, Taiwan, they all are in the range of 10 to 20%. So how would we compete when the competition with these countries, which will have a tariff of 10 to 20%, and our tariff goes up to as much as 50%. I mean, there is no way we can compete. No export order has these kind of margins that the exporters are reconciled to a lower margin and yet export. In fact, it will break the backbone of Indian exports to the US to a very large extent.
Right, Mr. Krishna, while we're talking about the double standards of the West and how India is standing up to that, given the current circumstances, earlier we were talking about 25%, but now a cumulative 50%, how prepared perhaps is India under the current circumstances to face the Trump tariff?
See, with the US, India is not prepared, I'm afraid. We can say whatever we want. But, the good thing India has done is India is not just laying all eggs in the American basket when it comes to our exports. India has signed free trade agreements or equivalents with Australia, with United Kingdom, with the, UAE, which is the, with UAE they have signed, and now discussions are happening even with the change of regime in Canada. Some discussions have started for FTA between Canada and India, and even with the European Union, we have made good progress for FTA negotiations. So I think India is trying to diversify. That's a very, very good strategy. But having said so, US is US, the world's wealthiest country, the highest GDP country, and our second largest trading partner. You can't wish them away. You can't write them off. So we have to, I don't think we should succumb in terms of our farmers and dairy products. I don't think we should show a lot of leverage there. But I think oil imports from Russia is something that we have to, over a period of time, reduce. Otherwise, we are faced with a situation where it's a temperamental president that we have in the US, and his behavior, his outburst depends on which side of the bed he gets up from. It's very unfortunate, and we really have to. We really don't have. It's a Hobson's choice for India. Unfortunately, that looks like a writing on the wall.
Right, Mr. Krishnan, of course, just to add to that, Trump's tariffs against India, 50% comes after multiple rounds of negotiation. Of course, the bromance between Prime Minister Modi and the US President. Where does all of this leave New Delhi-Washington ties moving forward?
So I think, this is very ironic, actually. If you look at, US-India relationship is not new. I mean, last 25 years, the thaw started with Prime Minister Vajpayee when he was the Premier of India. It started during that time, and it reached its level of maturity during Dr. Manmohan Singh's time. Those 10 years, our relationship with the US was extremely good, and we had a civil nuclear deal and a variety of other agreements and understandings and so on and so forth. So the relationship has been the relationship has been there for last 78 years since we became independent. But last 25 years has been a very, very strategic relationship with a lot of mutuality. US has always been wanting to have an expanded, access to Indian markets, looking at the fact that we are the most populous country in the world. Purchasing power has also improved. And post-COVID, we saw how the entire world has been looking at, having alternate supply chain destinations rather than laying all eggs in the Chinese basket. And India has been a forerunner. And US wants to patronize India, has given enough signals to show that they want to use India to address the Chinese economic aggression, right? Look at Indian diaspora; it is so strong in the U.S. With the average income of Indian diaspora in the U.S. being 2 to 3 times of an average American. So I mean, everything suggests that this relationship is far too strategic. But what's happening on the tariff war, on the trade war, is negates all that very and the so-called friendship between the Prime Minister Modi and President Trump. Unfortunately, it has not yielded any economic benefits. On the contrary, it is one of the highest tariffs which have been imposed on India on something like a oil export. Imports from Russia, which is a very extraneous issue, not connected with the trade issue at all. I have a feeling India should also take it up with WTO, that it's going in the wrong direction. But the fact is, who cares? I mean, does America care about, even if WTO wants to intervene? It's a very extreme, very unfortunate situation. I don't think India has too many options but to move. And even if a full-blown bilateral trade agreement doesn't see the light of the day very soon, I think we should have a mini deal as early as possible so that there's a rollback on this 25 and now 50% tariff.
Right, Mr. Krishna, thank you so much for joining us here on WION and sharing your insights with us on this news.
Thank you. A pleasure.
In other news, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has raised plans of full occupation of Gaza, and they are creating tremors. On one hand, Netanyahu's aides are upping the ante to fully occupy the Palestinian enclave, and on the other, dissent against Netanyahu's government is growing by the hour. Nearly 2 years of war has completely devastated the Palestinian territory. The visuals on your screens right now, it shows the gravity of destruction. Where once buildings stood tall, now lies a pile of dust and debris. Week after week, Israelis are demonstrating outside Netanyahu's office, demanding a ceasefire. US President Donald Trump declined to say whether he supported or opposed the move of his ally and said his administration's focus was on increasing food access to the Palestinian territory. The US President has left the question of occupation in Israel's hands.
As you know, $60 million was given by the United States fairly recently to supply food, and a lot of food, frankly, for the people of Gaza that are obviously not doing too well with the food. And I know Israel's going to help us with that in terms of distribution and also money. We also have the Arab states are going to help us with that in terms of the money and possibly distribution. So that's what I'm focused on. As far as the rest of it, I really can't say. That's going to be pretty much up to Israel. Yeah.
Israel's defense minister says the military will have to execute any government decision on Gaza. Reports also suggest Netanyahu and his cabinet would order a full military occupation of Gaza, sparking dissension from the army's chief of staff, Eyal Zamir. And well, to talk more on Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's plan of fully occupying Gaza, we have with us Mohammad Naji, who is a journalist, war correspondent and security analyst, and he's joining us live from Ramallah, from occupied West Bank. Welcome to WION. First up, of course, what kind of ramifications or on-ground implications will there be in Gaza if Netanyahu's plan actually goes forward of a complete occupation of Gaza Strip?
Yes, actually, more than 2 million Palestinians in Gaza suffer since the 7 October 23 right now from the blockade, from the war, the destruction, the shortage of food, the starvation, the shortage of water, drinkable water and medicine, and they are targeting for being injured or being killed and displaced from an area to another area. So the expansion of the military operation in the Gaza Strip will duplicate this catastrophic situation in the Gaza. Actually, it's not a natural disaster. It's a man-made disaster that facing the people of Gaza, who were hoping that the international community, as well as the United States, will open a safe passage to enter the food supplies, the humanitarian aid to them, to feed them after weeks of starvation, but now they use that the IDF tend to expand the military operation to take over Gaza. Actually, the IDF now taking over 75% of the Gaza Strip, so they want to take over 100% of the Gaza Strip, which will duplicate the civilian crisis and targeting more civilian lives in the Gaza Strip.
Right, Mr. Najee, thank you so much for joining us here on Race to Power. I'm afraid we are running short of time. We'll have to let you go at this point of time.
Thank you.
In other news, US President Donald Trump has hinted at his number two. We're talking about US Vice President J.D. Vance as the apparent heir to fight the next presidential race in America. Well, the conversation has been making headlines for months now, given how this will be Trump's last presidential terms, according to provisions of the American Constitution, that is. Listen in to this exchange.
Do you agree that the heir apparent to MAGA is J.D. Vance?
Well, I think most likely, in all fairness, he's the vice president. I think Marco is also somebody that maybe would get together with J.D. in some form. I also think we have incredible people, some of the people on the stage right here. So it's too early, obviously, to talk about it, but certainly he's doing a great job and he would be probably favored at this point.
While the 2028 race is still years away, Trump holds major influence with the Republican base, and any sign that he is backing a contestant carries major implications. The incumbent president's Trump's comments, it comes months after Secretary of State Marco Rubio put his weight behind Vice President J.D. Vance. In an interview with Lara Trump back in April, Rubio said J.D. Vance would be a great presidential nominee. But the race for Trump's successor is far from settled, as new leaders can throw their hat in at any point, leading to 2028 presidential primaries. It remains to be seen who will be tasked to help the Republican Party secure the second consecutive presidential term after George W. Bush.
Decided that within...
One of the most important things
Major political storm is brewing in Poland. Pro-Trump conservative Karol Nawrocki has taken up the duties of president, and the worries have grown in the camp of Prime Minister Donald Tusk.
Proszę pana prezydenta o powtarzanie za mną roty przysięgi. Obejmując z woli narodu urząd prezydenta Rzeczypospolitej Polskiej.
Obejmując z woli narodu urząd prezydenta Rzeczypospolitej Polskiej,
że dochowam wierności postanowieniom konstytucji.
Karol Nawrocki took oath in Polish parliament in his first speech after taking over the presidency. Nawrocki made it clear that he will push forward his Eurosceptic agenda.
I will therefore be the voice of those who want a sovereign Poland that is in the European Union but Poland, which is not the European Union but is and will remain Poland.
This puts him in direct confrontation with pro-EU Prime Minister Donald Tusk. With huge ideological divide between the President and the Prime Minister, the question of who leads the way ahead becomes important. In Poland, it is Prime Minister who heads the government and performs the task of making policies. But there is a caveat here. President has the power to veto the legislation and stall it from becoming a law. This balance of power creates a perfect ground for policy paralysis, especially if the head of state and the head of the government are not on the same page. And this is where ideological divide between Nawrocki and Tusk comes into play. Karol Nawrocki and Donald Tusk are pulling the country in opposite directions right now. On one hand, Tusk wants to roll back controversial judicial reforms, legalize abortion, and expand LGBTQ rights. He's also a vocal supporter of Ukraine and its NATO ambitions, while on the other side, Karol Nawrocki supports tough abortion laws, is skeptical of Ukraine's NATO membership, and opposes same-sex marriage. He's also a strong defender of judicial reforms that Brussels